Hey everybody, Tim and Jordan here for kind of a weird video, but one that I kind of felt needed to be done. We recently watched the HBO Max Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion, which for me, so there's two types of there's two types of reunions. One where it's actually like a movie or like an episode.
Like it's like supposed to be part of the show.
Yeah, which is I think I could be wrong, but I think that's what Friends is doing. Like I think Friends is actually doing like a movie or a video. Growing Pains. Did you ever watch Growing Pains?
A little bit.
Did some reunion movies, and that's kind of what I had hoped this would be. But this is actually like more of a documentary. Like,
yeah, I was gonna say for this one they kind of just shows up on the old set and they're all just kind of sitting around in a circle just talking about the good old days, which I thought was kind of interesting. So.
And it's and like you said, it's just literally the actors just kind of sitting around having a drink, talking about it.
I don't think any of them had a drink, but that probably would have made it a little bit better.
Oh, that's my part. That's my contribution.
Yeah,
is the drinking.
You're getting your reviews and their reviews mixed up.
So Fresh Prince was on from 1990 to 1996. 6 years. 6 seasons, 150 episodes. I remember it because realistically, so I'm a little bit older than you are. So I remember kind of it being in its heyday. I remember, honestly, I think my first, memory of Will Smith is either Independence Day or Men in Black, which I think they're both, right around 1998-ish. So, which would make sense, because I would have been, 10.
I'd say mine would probably be Men in Black. That's probably what I would.
But that's when I say that, that's me knowing this is Will Smith.
Right.
But realistically, The Fresh Prince was probably the first thing I saw him in, at least as far as acting goes. So I know I saw it. I knew I watched it. I can remember, I even had the theme song memorized. So it made an impact on my life, which, by the way, this is the 30-year anniversary, which is why they did this, or part of it. And so, but I don't have very clear memories of the series. I couldn't just be oh, there's this episode and this episode and this episode. Whereas, for example, recently, a couple years ago, you and I did a binge of Full House.
Yeah.
Full House made an impact on me. That is one that I was I can remember so many specifics of episodes. I mean, sometimes that does happen. So, for example, there's cartoons The Wild Thornberrys. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of it. I could not tell you a single episode right now. Right off the top of my head, couldn't do it. Oh. But if we started to watch it, I'd be oh, I do remember this
one. I remember that one.
So if you and I had tomorrow we started a binge of The Fresh Prince, I might remember some stuff more clearly. And realistically, even in this reunion, there were parts where I couldn't have told you, but specifically the one that jumped out the most was the one where they were blackmailing the sister.
Oh,
and she has to bark and stuff. As soon as they showed that clip, I was I do remember that. That is, I did see that one. Yep. So, long intro on my part. I apologize for that. But the reason I want to say all of this is for thousands of videos now, I have done reviews that have kind of meant a lot to me. And Fresh Prince did mean a lot to me. I did grow up with it. I do remember it. But this rocked your fucking world. For this review or this,
I don't know. It was
reunion.
It was more of the nostalgia thing. I grew up I would say probably during the era of Fresh Prince, but I didn't actually start really watching it until it was actually on Nick at Night, and they were doing a lot of the reruns.
See, I didn't even know it was on Nick at Night.
Oh yeah, Nick at Night. Every single week they had their own little marathon things for an entire week, and it was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, it was Roseanne, Full House, George Lopez. There was a bunch of different. Every week it was different, and so.
So I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but what year are we talking?
Nick and shit. I want to say 2005, 2006.
Okay. See, my memory of Nick at Night would have been right around 2000, and I swear it was I Love Lucy. I want to say it was old shows, which I mean for you. All of those shows you just named are old shows. So, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'd thrown off your thing.
I Love Lucy was actually one of those marathons.
But, okay, so, didn't even know it was on Nick at Night.
Yeah, so I was a Nick and Night kid, and I
Okay.
would watch it. I guess we had like the basic cable, the apartments that we lived in at the time. That was one of the perks on living there.
No
Uh,
Disney Channel.
we had Disney Channel.
Oh.
That was part of the basic cable. We had like 1 through 70, and the Disney Channel was on like 42, I think,
Oh.
or something. Yeah, and Nick and I was on channel 40. But that's what I did every night. Is I would stay up and I would watch Nick at Night all the way through, and then I would go to bed just in time, like when MASH would come
I
on
was
at
gonna
like
say,
3 o'clock in the
so
morning.
was Match Nick at Night?
MASH would come on at I think it would come on at Nick and Night too.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah. So once that came on, I would go to sleep, and that's when I knew I needed to get my butt to bed because it was too late.
Oh, I gotta wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. No, in a couple hours. But yeah, no. When the Fresh Prince Bel-Air, I watched. I want to say I'm not gonna say I watched every episode. I'm sure I probably missed one out there, but I want to say I pretty much damn near probably saw every single freaking episode out. And so yeah, this reunion, it was definitely just the nostalgia. Some of the episodes that they were showing in the clips, or like things that they were pointing out, and like just little like one things in this interview was that Will, when he first started, he memorized everybody's lines, and so he would be lipping other people's lines, and when they're trying to say their lines, like he's sitting there and he's like lip syncing them as they're saying them. And it was just like to go back and have I'd be like, oh my god, I remember that episode. I don't specifically remember watching his lips do that, but it's just funny to like in my mind be like, I remember that episode, and now when I go back and watch that episode, I'm gonna be watching for like Will Smith to be like lipping all these other people's lines. It's funny.
Okay. God, so for this reunion, I don't even know. Like this is like probably the first ever video of mine. Literally nothing, no notes, no nothing. We're winging it. So for this, like I said, they touch on a lot of things in this, but they also don't. So one of the things that I have no memory of, something they try to do a lot in TV shows is replace actors. You and I have also done binges of Roseanne,
Right.
where they flat out call out Becky that they like replaced her, where the new Becky's like, oh, they thought they could have replaced Dick on I Dream of Jeannie and nobody would notice. Or then when the old Becky returns, she's like, where the hell have you been?
Yeah, exactly.
So stuff like that. Harriet from Family Matters, stuff like that. So literally, like I said, this show was 6 seasons. The first Vivian was on the first 3. The second Vivian was on the second 3. They both did like 75 episodes.
Okay.
So they're tied. It's not like Harriet, for example, from Family Matters, who she did it for all these years, and literally the last season was somebody new. Or even Becky to an extent, for not even the Connors, but like the original Roseanne, like where it's these disproportionate numbers. The original Aunt Vivian, the second Aunt Vivian were tied.
Literally 50-50, yeah.
So for you, do you remember seeing the change in Aunt Vivian? What did you think, and who did you like more? This is more like I'm interviewing you. It's great. I love it.
Which I don't see, and that's the part where I'm gonna say is I'm not gonna say I saw every episode, is because I don't know if they changed Vivian's between seasons.
Yes.
So like
it would have literally have been the last episode of season 3 and the first episode of season 4.
Okay, so that one I can't exactly. I probably did see the episode, but I can't exactly pinpoint it. But I would honestly say I think I like the first Vivian more, just because she had that like. I don't know, she had that more, like, even though she was a classy woman and she was in Bel-Air and her husband was a prime judge, she still had that, like, I'm not going to mess around and, like, don't...
See, part of my memories for Aunt Vivian was her being very well put together. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the clips, at least, it made the original Aunt Vivian look like she will fucking throw down. That's where she, like, takes her earrings off and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, I did not remember that Uncle Phil was a judge. You had to explain that to me.
Yeah,
so...
Exactly.
That's one of those,
that's why I said that's why I like the original Vivian more, just because and that's where I was explaining to you, is that before he became a judge, he was just a lawyer, and they were living in a small little rundown apartment, like they were from the hood. So for the original Vivian, like, her attitude, the way she acted and dressed and everything, it just kind of made, like, she played that character really well, especially with the way they wrote that character. She just fit it. Whereas the new Vivian, she just she did good, but she definitely had more of the, like, I grew up in a proper home, and, like, that's not the way ladies act kind of thing. Whereas she was a good actor, but I didn't really feel like it fit her role.
So I'm not going to lie. Part of my charm for these videos is they are completely unedited, uncut, whatever. Like, especially me drinking. Like, you get what you get. So, we are cheating. We have a little cheat sheet here. I'm just going to read a synopsis. I love that word. Will and Carlton move into their new crib and immediately throw a party, but being on the guest list becomes a non-requirement. Will and Carlton are thrown out of their new apartment by the landlord because of the wild party being held at their place. Anything? Does that spark a memory? Will and Carlton having their own apartment, throwing a party?
There's a lot of parties in the episode or in the series.
The only reason that I'm kind of putting you on the spot for that one is that is the new Vivian's first episode.
That's the new Vivian's first.
So, because you said you couldn't remember the exact change, so that would have been her specific.
I don't know if it's the right episode or not, but I want to say that could be the episode where Will Smith and a guy they try to see who can drink the most.
Ooh, I win.
And
or it's time for graduation and Will is failing in his music course. His teacher will give him a passing grade if he sings at the graduation ceremony with 12-year-olds.
Yes, I do remember that one.
That is the original Aunt Vivian's last episode.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the episode where he has to dress up like a sunflower.
See, that's... So for this...
And he teaches a bunch of little kids, like, kind of... I think he teaches them how to rap, too, so...
I was actually going to say, like, does Will... I'm assuming Will has to rap at some point in the
He raps a couple times.
So, I don't know. This is more for you. So, what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the reunion, what you wanted, what you didn't want? Do you want to talk about specific... Do you want to break it down by actors?
I don't know. These are your reviews.
I know. That's weird. So, for me... not really knowing a lot about specifics for The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, they touch on a couple of things because they talk about how groundbreaking it is a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't give examples. The only two examples in the reunion that I can think of, what's the little daughter's name?
Ashley.
Ashley talks about her first kiss.
Oh, when she was like 11, yeah.
And honestly, I don't know it. This is 30 years of hindsight, so this is a touchy subject, and that's one of those things. Like, we are very white, and this is a black show. It is what it is. Like, there's no way around it. Just cut right to the chase. They showed a clip of an episode where Carlton is driving, and they get pulled over, and Will's like, "Put your hands on the wheel," and Carlton's like, "No," because as far as I know, the joke of Carlton is he's like really white. Like, he's the whitest black man ever.
He's a rich kid.
And so as soon as the cop walks up, Carlton's like, "How's it going?" And the cop's like, "Put your hands on the steering wheel," which 30 years later, look at where we are. We live in Portland, Oregon, literally just had 100 days of riots because this is a thing. This is a real issue. I don't know anything about this episode. They just showed that clip and it seemed like it was supposed to be funny. And it's like, that's like, literally, if they had just flipped that, taken away the sound, the laugh track or something, this could have been a fucked up episode.
Yeah.
So, like, it seems like they touched, okay, so little girl having her first kiss, black people being pulled over, stuff like that. Like, they touched on a lot of important issues. I know Will is supposed to be like a teenager or young, early 20s.
Well, I mean, in real life, yeah, but in the show, he's supposed to be like, I think, like 16 or 17.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was supposed to be like. So for you, what specific issues do you remember? Like, did they talk about sex? Did they talk about drugs?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was the early 90s, so every TV show had to have an AIDS episode. Like, for you, what issues do you remember them talking about? And like, stood out to you or helped you?
I don't know. I mean, they talked about a lot. I mean, there was the typical, talking about the kids stealing cars. They're sneaking out at night.
See, that episode, I don't remember that. So I need,
them
not necessarily specifics, but like those are the examples I'm looking for.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say like them stealing cars. Hillary, like when she drops out of college, and then that's the episode where they're blackmailing her.
Oh.
And so I mean, like there's stuff like that. There's the episode where I think Will has drugs, and I think it's something to do with he's like having problems, I think, like studying for a test, and he's like, I forget exactly what kind of drugs they're for, but they're
I would
drugs.
assume it's pot.
It's not pot; they're pills.
Oh.
And Carlton ends up finding they're at prom, and like Carlton ends up finding them or whatever, and then he ends up taking them. And then Carlton ends up in the hospital, and it's one of those like.
I think they showed a clip of him in the hospital.
No, so they showed a picture. They showed an episode of Will being in the hospital, and that's I'm trying to think what exactly happens then, because I want to say like a guy like I think Will ends up getting shot in the butt.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Which, you know, that's kind of like, that's a little prolific, because I know he did Bad Boys during this, and he ends up shooting Martin Lawrence in the ass.
Nice. So I mean, there's a couple things like that. There's the typical like, I mean, he's a kid from Philly that his mom couldn't handle him, so she kicked him out to Cal. I mean, there's a lot of
There were
stuff
some
that they
kids making trouble in the neighborhood.
the fact that like his dad was out of his life and then comes back in and leaves. I mean, there's
Yeah, see, I wish I could remember. I do remember his mom showing up, only because I remember being at school and the kids being like, you know, his mom is in like the opening sequence, like the music video, like the title sequence where she's like, you're going to live with your aunt and your uncle in Bel-Air. And then when his mom actually shows up, like the mom in the opening is like an old woman and it's like a granny. And then
I
when
think it's Will Smith dressed up like an old lady.
Is it?
I think I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen it.
I feel like we gotta watch it.
I know.
Now.
I was like, we gotta watch it,
But when his mom actually shows up, you're like, is that what she looks like? That's not what she's supposed to look like.
You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah. So I remember when his mom showed up. I don't remember when his dad showed up.
Yeah, well, his dad like randomly shows like Will's already in college and everything like that. His dad finally.
So it's
shows
later
up.
in the series. Then.
Yeah, it's way later in the series, and then even then, I think he's literally only makes an appearance for like one. It's maybe a 2-parter episode.
How much is his mom in, if you remember?
His mom's in it a few different times because that's Vivian's sister. So
you know, that's actually something I've never literally until you just said that. Never thought about. I thought he was actually related to Uncle Phil.
No. Oh no. So that's
Like,
I know you haven't watched the show or you don't remember because Uncle Phil makes it notable multiple times. He's like, you were my wife's sister's child. Like he says,
you're related by marriage.
Yeah, he says it multiple times.
Oh, nope.
Yeah, so that's Vivian's sister. So she's in it a few times, and honestly, the only episode that I can ever really truly remember her being in is, I'm sure if I see the episodes, I'm like, oh yeah, it's in this episode too.
I feel like this is going to be our next binge, y'all.
Right. Is when actually Will Smith, because Will Smith meets Jada on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and they actually end up getting married in the show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And
like, does it last to the end, or is it like...
I think so.
Oh.
He proposes to her twice.
Oh.
Because the first time she says no, because that's actually when he's in the hospital. That's when he proposes to her the first time. Yeah.
I did know that Jada was in it,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know that they got married in the series.
Yeah, they ended up getting married in the series, and when his mom gets on the plane, or when they arrive to the house, his mom is like, I had to sit next to this man, and he was being obnoxious and rude and annoying, and he hated me. But you know what? It's okay because I don't have to listen to him anymore.
It's gonna be like Jada's dad or something.
And then Jada's dad walks in, and he's like, I had to sit next to this noisy ass woman on the plane, and she was annoying. Anything I did disrupted her, blah, blah, blah. But it's okay because I don't have to see her anymore. And then they walk to the living room, and then they're both like, it's one of those like, you.
That would be like our parents.
Oh God.
God, that would.
So yeah, like that's really the only episode I can actually truly honestly remember her being in. Okay. But like I know there's more episodes because I think like when Will graduates and stuff like that, like she shows up and everything. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, no memories of any of this. Well, I actually like I knew he met Jada in the series because if I remember correctly, that's the only thing that they've acted in together. They've never actually done other stuff. Whereas like Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell have done like 4 or 5 stuff. Right. But yeah, so that's all new. I did not. I don't know where your phone went. I did not know the little kid. Oh, that Nikki. Aunt Viv. Oh, what's his name? Nikki. So like, they showed a clip of him, and I was like, oh, it's the little kid from Little Rascals, and Independence Day and stuff like that. Like he played Buckwheat. He was so cute. He's a great kid. And then he ended up showing up. And that's what I wanted more out of the reunion was you see these other people. The reunion was so short. It was like an hour and a half.
It was, and they didn't really talk. Like, I wanted them to kind of talk about, like, where are you now? What are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
And it was literally like, hey, we used to all act together. Great times. Bye.
Here's some clips.
Yeah.
Because, like, you see the two Aunt Vivians meet,
Right.
and it's great. Like, I loved the interview between Will and the original Aunt Vivian.
Yes.
It's great. A lot of drama that didn't even know about. And you know that she comes on set, because I like how the second Vivian even says, because he's like, so what did y'all think? And she's like, I've never met her.
And that's what I thought was kind of weird after.
I mean, it would make sense. Like, if one of them left the production and then the new one came in.
But you would think it's Hollywood, 30 years.
That's true.
You would think they'd cross paths at some point. I mean, they're both black women. They're both independent. I mean, you would think that they would be at a banquet together. Or
That's
something. You know, you would think something out of 30 years.
But, and then, so you see the original come out, and you, like you said, you see, like, this great montage of everybody hugging and kissing, and Will doing, like, the, like, selfie with, like, here's both of my aunts. I wanted the conversation. Like, I wanted to see the two Vivians talk.
Right.
And, like, I didn't know shit about Nicky or who he was in the series, but again, like, he popped in towards the end.
And he was only there for, like, maybe 5 minutes, and then he left.
Yeah, which, granted, he wasn't in the series nearly as much, but I still kind of wanted more of those types of, like, interactions and details.
Like I said, the main thing I wanted to know is, like, because Jada was a big part of the end of the series, and so, like, because I mean, they brought Jazz in, and Jazz was, you know, Will's best friend during the whole entire series, and so, it was kind of those, I was hoping they'd bring Jada in a little bit, but then, unfortunately, if anyone watches the news or anything like, you know, Hollywood Buzz, everyone knows what's going on between Jada and Will right now.
I don't
so
know what's going on.
Yeah, right now they're kind of like, basically Jada admitted that she cheated on Will. But anyways, and then I don't know if they're in the middle of a divorce, if they're still together and they're just gonna agree to be together. I don't know what exactly is going on with them, but regardless, yeah, I'm pretty sure something told me that they all had to be like, hey, we're not gonna talk about our personal lives or something.
Which he briefly, like, all he did was say he was married and had kids.
That's when he's talking to the first Vivian, because we find out, you know, like, because that was one of the things I liked about the reviews, or the reunion, is that, you know, I never truly understood why she left, and then in this reunion we end up finding out that it was actually kind of Will who was being a douche to her. And we end up finding out that, like, you know, we end up finding out that her being pregnant with Nicky on the show was because she was pregnant in real life. We found out that she was married to an abusive husband, and then all this stuff was going on. And then when she actually had her kid or whatever, the producers called her up and said something about, like, hey, we're going to sign you on the deal, but you're not going to work for 6 months. And she just had a kid. She was in an abusive relationship. You know, she needed to work. She wasn't happy anymore or anything like that. And so they ended up finding out that it was actually kind of Will's decision to recast her, which I was like, oh, ouch. I was like, I didn't know that part. And so that was kind of a big mind-shocking thing. And it, knowing, and Will even admits that he was like, I was young and dumb. He's like, I was, 21, 23, somewhere in there. He was like, everything was a threat to me, and he's like, I was just doing what everyone was telling me to do. And he's like, you know, I look back on it, and he's like, after being married and divorced and married and having kids, he's like, yeah, he's like, I probably would have done stuff a little bit differently. And unfortunately, it's probably just one of those, you don't know about those situations until you're in them yourselves. And so like, that was a big thing I want to say for me, is just because I'm always curious, like, why did they leave? Was it their own decision? Was it because 9 times out of 10 it's usually a money issue. And so the fact that there was actually drama behind it, I was like, oh, somebody needed to hold their llama.
Drama. I don't even know how to follow up on that. So I get it's gonna be rough on both of us. I was gonna say, I just heard British for a reason. I don't know where that came from.
Too much Doctor Who going on there.
Uncle Phil, James Avery, was a fantastic actor. I was sad. That was the moment that got me in the whole reunion, was the James Avery montage. Because, so I knew, like, James Avery, actually, I knew him more of a voice actor.
No.
Because he was the voice of Shredder in the original Ninja
That's
Turtles
right.
cartoon, and he was the voice of
I don't know that
War
one.
Machine.
Okay.
Like you've seen like the Avengers movies and stuff like that, like
Right.
Rhodey, like Iron Man's sidekick. Like he was the voice of War Machine in the Iron Man cartoons. So James Avery was a huge, he was a huge actor.
He was a huge actor.
He was, I don't know, he was bigger than life. Like he was really good, and I don't know, it was very sad that he
and
passed away in 2013.
and that's yeah. I don't know why I thought it was sooner than that. Like, but that was one thing too. Was like kind of just watching the reunion. It made me kind of like teared up just a little bit, just because everyone that he worked with all had something good. Like they were like, yeah, he was kind of like the dad on the show. It kind of seemed like it was like, if they were having a rough time learning his lines, he was the like, well, just focus on me, like just I'll help you. Whenever like they were getting too serious, he always like partook in all of their little parties that they had before the episodes and stuff like that. And so
Well, part of that I think is one of he was kind of a product of his time.
you
Like he was already like the adult dad for 1990, but like Will said, like he was a Shakespearean classically trained actor.
and he liked jazz a lot.
And it seemed like he actually had a lot in common with Uncle Phil.
That yeah.
Where they showed the clip where Uncle Phil's like, I fucking worked for everything I've gotten in my life. Whereas like you talked about like Carlton, where Carlton's a spoiled little rich kid.
Right.
Whereas like Uncle Phil was not that. Uncle Phil came from the streets
Mm-hmm.
and worked his way up. So he's like, no, you can look at me, look at my gigantic house, look at my family, but this is what I have built.
Yeah.
Like, I am not Carlton. Like, I was not given this. So, fuck you and the horse you rode in on.
Yeah, literally.
Because I think, didn't he say, like, he came from Philly? Like, did he come from, like, the same, I thought he said he came from the same place Will did.
See, I don't know if he came. I know he says he comes from the streets and stuff like that, and I mean, and also like there's actually like there's like flashback episodes where it shows them living in like their super rundown apartment, and like I mean they have the kids and everything, and it's actually an episode where Phil becomes a judge. He comes home because he's just like a small time lawyer, I guess, or I guess a big time lawyer. I don't know, or a small time lawyer because he's not that rich. And then it's the episode where like they're all there, and actually Will is even in the episode too as a little kid because he's there when I guess Phil gets the news that he becomes a judge. And like they know how much it's going to change their lives and everything like that. And then like Hillary's like, I can afford all the Barbie dolls now that I ever won, blah blah blah. And so it's just like yeah.
I mean, you go. Like, I'm actually really happy. You have no idea, like, because it's very rarely like where we see stuff like this. So like over the years, we've kind of met, or we've kind of done binges and watching and stuff like that. I've watched a couple of shows for you. You've obviously watched way more for me. You're a dick, but
That's true.
like we watched all of Sex and the City, which was for you. So like if they did like a reunion now, like I've watched what Sex and the City, Powerpuff Girls, and Sailor Moon.
Ooh.
So like some of those like and like this evidently like you watched Full House for me, which I mean you watched a lot of Full House.
I mean, yeah, I was like that's kind of for both of us,
But this is clearly like a very important show for you.
I wouldn't say it's important. I mean, I don't feel that way about TV at all, but it's one of those shows. Like, I mean, as just growing up, it's one of those that I watched it a lot or whatever. Like I said, it was just happened to have marathons at night. I was a night owl. I mean, even when I was in high school, I did the majority of my housework, cleaning, homework. I did all of that at nighttime. So, staying up watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, I guess that just fit into my schedule.
Yeah. Any other last moments for something you wish they would have done on the reunion that they didn't do, or something like a specific episode that jumps out at you that you wish they would have covered or talked about?
I kind of wish they would have reenacted the very first episode ever, just because, like, the pilot episode, just because it's like they haven't been together for 30 years, so it would have been funny just to reenact, like, what it would have been like. Or I don't, even if they would have just, like, done, like, just an opening, like 30 years, I mean, because it sucks because the last episode ends with them selling the house and moving away. So you couldn't necessarily do an episode where like Will walks in and like Jeffrey's watering the plants, or actually Jeffrey would open up the door for him. So I don't know, but it's just like it kind of depends. Like I wish they would have like done like a mini episode, I guess, not necessarily a. I don't know, just like a hey, where have you been in 30 years kind of thing. Like, oh, like where have you been? Like, gosh, we've been here this whole time.
I don't give a shit about any of the family. I just want to know where the butler's been.
He's been in England
Doing episodes of Doctor Who.
doing episodes.
He was actually, before he was in Fresh Prince, he did an episode of the classic Doctor Who.
Oh, well.
Yeah. It was the first thing I saw him in. No, it wasn't. Okay, that's about all I got, because we kind of talked about all the stuff that stood out to me. A lot of tearjerker moments that we don't want to get into, because then they'll just jerk those tears right back out. But, and I swear they all revolved around James Avery, because that's just kind of the type of character he is. Which, realistically, like, fast forward 10 plus years in the future, like, at some point, like, John Goodman, for example, when he passes away, it's one of those moments, like, if I open my phone, I almost said open the paper. If I open the phone and John Goodman passed away, I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be like, that's very sad. But it's one of those where until I see a clip, like the clips of him from Roseanne, the clips of him from the Flintstones and stuff like that, like it doesn't get to me. I won't be emotional just reading like, oh, like he passed away and it's sad, but I won't be emotional. It's when you see those clips that really get to you. And like I remember when I read like, oh, James Avery passed away, and I was like, that's sad. He was a good actor and I really liked him. But it was those clips, especially the ones that showed off his acting ability, and to juxtapose the behind the scenes where he's just having fun, dancing, like showing him as a person and as an actor. Those are the moments that made me emotional. Where I'm like, oh my god, like this, he could still be doing so much because he was such a good actor. That's all I got. Any closing thoughts? Would you want another reunion in another 30 years? Whoever's left?
I was just gonna say, I was like, shit. I was like, so like Ashley and Carlton and Will. Like,
wow, it's a little mean, but not untrue.
I was like, actually, it'd probably just be Ashley and Carlton. Yeah, and he'd probably break a hip.
He did fucking awesome in the last like 10 seconds of the episode, where he's like, "Let's do it." Like, even to this day. And he's like, we're going to do the hands. You ready?
Yeah, and then Will's like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this.
Which he said all throughout the whole thing.
I know. And then I was like, he's actually doing pretty good. So, but at the same time, like, I was like, he's had like 30 years to practice. So.
Well, and because they showed clips of like Will and Carlton doing it. And it's one of those things where, like you said, when you're watching the episode, you don't see Will mouthing the words because you're not looking at Will, you're looking at the person talking.
Right.
And like when Will and Carlton are doing it, you're looking at Carlton because he's so fucking good. But like when he was like, even like when we first did this, I couldn't do it. And sure enough, like when they show it, Will's like, wait. Like it's definitely not as fluid as Carlton's just dancing.
Well, Alonzo, which is the guy that plays Carlton, he even admits that he made up that dance because in the script it just says Carlton dances, and I
think it's copyrighted now.
Yeah, it's actually, yes, it is, and it's one of those, like, he said he was like, well, I had to look at the character and I had to think, okay, like, how would this character dance, and then poof, you got the Carlton.
Which that's one of the moments I loved when he talked about like breaking character and breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Like the one where he just started running into the audience and the camera followed him.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, dude, that's an episode. I want to go watch that episode.
I remember that episode. I want to say like he thinks like Will killed somebody. And I think that's why he's doing that.
And he just starts, and then he's like doing like the doggy,
yeah,
like,
he like wheels himself across. Yeah.
See, like, stuff like that, like, I don't know, maybe that'll be our next big binge, because I don't remember very much of it, evidently.
Yeah, obviously.
Do you have a favorite character? Last minute question.
I would say, honestly, it'd be a toss-up between Hillary or Ashley.
I could see you liking Hillary.
Just, Hillary is so freaking dumb and ditzy. She's so fucking funny as hell.
Does she ever get better? Because I remember her being ditzy, but I don't remember her ever getting better.
She is just... She's always ditzy, but then she does have a couple episodes where you're like, fuck, she actually has a brain. Okay. Like, I mean, she is a businesswoman. She has her own talk show host and this shit. Like, yeah, she's really, like, successful and everything. But there's just ones where, like, they talk about her always losing her keys. And she's like, well, why don't you just do what I do? And they're like, what? And she's like, I just have 30 sets made, so every time I lose one, I just have a new one. And they're like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, and so they end up losing the keys to the car, and they're like, well, we have to find them before Uncle Phil gets back home. And, like, they go to leave, and Ashley's like, well, why don't we just drive around town and find a set of Hillary's, because I'm sure they're somewhere. Because, you know, she makes 30 keys a month, and she loses 30 sets of keys. I mean,
I've locked my keys in my car so often that I keep a spare in my wallet. So.
I do, too, because who did I learn it from? And you know what? Everyone that I tell that secret to is like, genius! And I was like, come for someone who locks their keys in at least 3 times a week. Yeah.
Any other... last question, I promise. What is the next show that you would want to see a reunion of?
Oh, the next show I would want to see a reunion of. To be determined. That's like a question you should have asked me like before we did this video, so that I had like 36 minutes to think about it.
That's the whole point of winging it. It just came up with it.
Yeah, well now you got my answer for winging it.
To be determined. Okay. I'll settle for that. That's my fault.
You're gonna have to.
Okay. Any closing thoughts?
I think that's all I got. I'm all out of my beer, so I want to go get another one.
So you liked it? It was what you wanted out of a reunion?
Yeah, it was really good.
More or less. Okay. So I guess that's it for us for the reunion of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I don't know. I feel like after 30 years, he's the Fresh King of Bel-Air. Doesn't have the same ring to it, does it, though?
He would be married now.
Oh, that's true. And technically, Uncle Phil passed away, so...
Yeah.
So the Fresh King of Pet... That's going to be the title of this. So that's...
King of Bel-Air.
The Fresh King of Bel-Air. So that's all we got for this one. If those who watched it on HBO Max, I'm really kind of curious what everybody else thought of this. What you guys wanted out of a reunion. If you got it, did you want an episode or did you want a documentary? Is there any special guest stars? Like, I'm assuming the series... Like, I know Friends is famous for guest stars. Did the series have...
They did have guest stars, and I hate to say it because it's the only one that comes to mind.
The Jeffersons from the last episode. I saved you. Don't worry.
Okay, good, because I was like, you already know who I was going to say. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas. Mr. Jefferson from the Jeffersons is in the last episode because he's the one who buys their house. So that makes The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air a spin-off of All in the Family. Because the Jeffersons was a spin-off of All in the Family. So anyways, so no big guest stars jump out like...
You know me and guest stars, I don't know that shit that well. True. So I mean, I'm sure if we watch the series, you'd be like, oh my god, guess who that is? I'd be like, it's a person.
Well, the only reason I asked was like Friends. If you were like, well, what guest star would you have wanted to see? Like Bruce Willis or something. But so nobody like... You're glad a guest star didn't make an appearance.
Yeah, nothing I can really think of.
Okay, so for those who know who guest stars are, who would you have wanted to see other than like, we got both Aunt Vivian's, we got Nikki. So who else would you want to see kind of come back? Like, I don't remember Jazz, honestly. Like, it's
Jazz, his friend that was in like the majority of all of the episodes.
Oh, yeah. Like, no. The whole throwing him out of the window or house thing.
Throw him out of the house, yeah.
So
don't worry, I'll throw myself out. Ah!
You broke me.
Literally part of the episode.
Who would you want to see? Go ahead, let us know. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully there's more reunions, because this was actually really, really fun. And it was actually background noise. And that Jordan's like, what's this? And like, he's just kept getting closer to the TV. So let us know what you guys think, what your favorite moments of the series was, so we could talk about it. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and we will see you guys next time.